What you're looking at now is one of 6 airports that have sustained damage from the original earthquake, the magnitude 7.4. I'm going to show a series of videos because we're going to try and tie all these pieces together. You're looking at Cali, Colombia, near the epicenter, and I want you to see all the dust in the background here from this elevated position. These are buildings that have sustained severe damage, if not full collapse, and there have been reports coming out of this region that at least 20 buildings have collapsed. Of course, people trapped under the rubble. That is not good news. And then we take you to the ground, and this is what it looks like in Cali, Colombia. And you can see rescue efforts, first responders digging through the rubble amongst the aftershocks that are happening as we speak. So again, this is about 250 miles west of Bogotá. The epicenter was actually about 100 kilometers below the surface. That's important. I'll tell you why in a minute. But let's talk about what the USGS does in these moments. They take previous earthquakes in similar tectonic plates, and they can compare them with the magnitude and give an estimate on the potential number of fatalities. It's a grim subject to discuss, but it's the reality we're facing. And they say, according to this analysis from the USGS, nearly 1 in 3 chance that there are over 1,000 fatalities from this particular earthquake. This is an intermediately deep earthquake, the epicenter. If it was near the surface, I would expect even more widespread damage than what we've seen. But regardless, we've got nearly 2 million people that have felt the very strong shaking from this powerful earthquake. And we expect aftershocks to continue. In fact, on average, we see with a 7.4 original earthquake, we have on average about 10 5.0 or greater aftershocks, maybe even a 6.0 or greater aftershock. That is certainly possible. These types of earthquakes and this power are very rare. We only get about 15 of them worldwide per year. And of course, anything above an 8.0, that is very, very rare. But going back to these videos, Pamela, terrifying moments. We have reports of damage to airports, so that's infrastructure, of course, buildings that have collapsed, and the rubble here that you can clearly see in these first few videos now we're getting out of Western Colombia.
All right, thanks, Derek. Let's go live now to CNN correspondent Stefano Pozzebon. Stefano, I know you've covered Colombia. What more can you tell us about this quake?
Yeah. Well, we can understand, Pamela, that this quake has hit one of the most sparsely populated areas of Colombia. Colombia itself is a highly urbanized country where more than 70% of the population actually lives in cities or urban area. And thankfully, the epicenter of this earthquake was in an area densely covered by jungle and the rainforest. However, the majority of the damage seems to be concentrated in the area of Pereira, the city of Pereira, which is a city of about 500,000 people, right at the center of Colombia. It's at a high altitude on top of the mountain, of the Andes mountain, and where we understand that at least 18 people have been killed by the earthquake, according to the local mayor. Substantial damage has been impacted on the local airport, which of course is a crucial aspect of this story, because one thing that I've definitely learned covering the Venezuelan earthquake a couple of months ago is that reaching the areas most affected by this sort of natural disaster is particularly challenging when you don't have the support of aviation. Colombia is also a very hilly country. The region that has been impacted by the earthquake is definitely more mountainous than the plains, and you can imagine that they will need to put the airports back into running as quickly as possible if they want to have supplies in the upcoming hours and days. So the fact that the airport in Pereira has been substantially damaged, of course, is a cause of concern. Like we are saying, at least 20 people killed so far. I was checking with friends and loved ones on the phone as we learned the news. Luckily, all of the people that I was in touch with when I was living in Colombia for the last 6 years have been rescued. We were just chatting if they were able to speak with their relatives or loved ones in the areas most impacted by these quake. Luckily, the number of the casualties seems to be minor compared to the ones in Venezuela a couple of months ago. But that, of course, is the comparison. The story of Venezuela really has shocked the region, South America as a whole, with 2 earthquakes impacting one in short succession from the other one. it seems like that this is the case for Colombia as well, where several aftershakes have been continuously hitting in the capital. A couple of friends, they just texted me a few moments ago saying that they were in Bogotá and they could still feel the aftershakes, Pamela. So we'll try to understand more. The president of Colombia, Abelardo de la Espriella, who has just sworn in. He's just at the beginning of his mandate. He was sworn in only on the 7th of August, and he's now facing a major challenge, a major natural crisis, natural disaster crisis that, of course, will challenge the unity of its government. He has called for an emergency meeting of his cabinet. He posted a video from his presidential jet saying that he was heading to the capital, Bogotá, to chair this emergency meeting and to make all of the resources necessary available. But of course, we're here still in the very early stages of this story, and we'll bring you the latest as soon as we hear more from the Colombian authorities. Pamela?
Yeah, I mean, 7.4 magnitude earthquake. You know, Colombia is a country that is no stranger to earthquakes, but this is at a really large scale. And I'm wondering, during your time living there, what the concern was for an earthquake of this magnitude and just the preparations or ability to respond on a mass scale.
Yeah, the level of preparation, of course, is different throughout the country. Colombia is a very uneven country. You live in the city, or especially the area where I was living, the center of Bogotá. You don't really have an experience that is so different from living in the West, in the US, for example. But of course, the countryside is a completely different matter. While I was living in Colombia for the last 6 years, I did experience several earthquakes. None of them was of this magnitude. Friends that I've been messaging or calling throughout the afternoon here in Italy have been all been saying it's the worst that I've experienced. I never experienced something so bad. Several people have actually been awakened by this earthquake because it hit at 7:30 a.m. in the morning in Colombia, and so several people, they just said that they were being thrown off their beds by the magnitude of this quake. The city of Bogotá itself, you can see, I remember that you will go into buildings and you will see the notices on the wall saying that these are quake safe buildings with built-in technique that are made up to resist to the impact of an earthquake. Of course, the countryside is a completely different matter. All large structures, such as the airport, as I was saying, in Pereira, that is the area that for me now is the biggest area of concern, because it's very hard to travel around the countryside in Colombia, and you need air travel to get the supplies that the first responders will need in the areas that are most impacted by the earthquake. So I hope that they will be able to have the airports and the runways up and running as quickly as possible.
Let's talk with Glaeldys González from the International Crisis Group, who felt the earthquake in Bogotá. You felt the earthquake as far away as Bogotá, but I'm certainly glad that you are safe. I just want to talk about the likely impact of this quake, because obviously the first thing that I thought about was the fact that just about 6 weeks ago in neighboring Venezuela, we had two twin earthquakes that measured 7.2 and 7.5 on the Richter scale. This one in Colombia is 7.4, and obviously there are various factors, including the depth of the earthquake, that determines really the consequences. But just walk us through how concerned people are about what the death toll may be. When we consider that in Venezuela, we're now talking 61,000 people dead. Walk us through what the concern is about how things may end up in Colombia.
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation. Well, right now the most serious impacts have been reported in some parts of the country, a region known as Eje Cafetero, mainly cities like Manizales, Pereira, Armenia, and Cali have had the most serious affectations of the earthquake. There has been reports of injured people, collapsed buildings, and so far we don't know